Welcome to today's video on domain and range. Today we're going to talk about how to find the domain and range of certain functions. The first function we're going to focus on is the square root function. And to find the domain, you set the stuff inside the square root greater than or equal to 0, because remember, you can't have a negative inside a radical. So for example, here I would just set x plus 1 greater than or equal to 0 and solve it. So move the 1 over. I get x is greater than or equal to negative 1, and that is my domain is negative 1 to infinity. For the range, I'm going to replace the entire square root with greater than or equal to 0, because remember, if the square root has to be positive, then the range is going to start out having to be positive. So I replace the entire square root with greater than or equal to 0. So first you're going to distribute. So notice you're going to distribute the negative 5 in. So basically, or sorry, the 5. So it's 3 minus 5 times 0 and 5 times infinity. Well, 5 minus 0 is still 0. Or sorry, 5 times 0 is still 0. 5 times infinity is still infinity. So then 3 minus 0 is going to give you 3, and 3 minus infinity. So 3 minus 0 is 3. 3 minus infinity. Now remember, if you subtract a big number from a smaller number, you're going to get a negative. So 3 minus infinity is going to negative infinity. So then just rewrite it to make sense. Because remember, negative infinity always comes first. So it's negative infinity to 3. So basically the range is less than or equal to 3. So now, next we'll talk about a parabola, or an absolute value. So to find the domain, you don't even have to do anything. Anytime it's a squared parabola or an absolute value, the domain is all real numbers. So that's automatic. To find the range, we're going to replace the entire squared part or the absolute value with the greater than or equal to 0 and simplify. So to find the range here, we go 4 minus greater than or equal to 0, and then we're going to subtract 4. So 4 minus 0 and 4 minus infinity. Now 4 minus 0 is 4. 4 minus infinity is negative infinity. And so just rewrite it so the negative infinity comes first. So it's greater than or equal to 4 for the range. So now when we're talking about diagonal lines, like y equals 4x minus 2 or y equals mx plus b, those are diagonal lines. The domain is all real numbers, and the range is all real numbers because there's no restriction on either one of those. For horizontal and vertical lines, the domain for a horizontal line is all real numbers because you can put any number in for y equals for x, and you'll still get negative 7. The range is just going to be whatever that y value is. In this case, it's just 7, or negative 7, sorry. For the vertical line, the domain is the number that the x value is. So in this case, the domain is 5, and the range is all real numbers. So that's how you would treat a horizontal and vertical line. One of them is going to be all real numbers, and the other one is going to be whatever that number is, depending upon if it's y equals or x equals. All right, why don't you try to do these examples here on your own, and then we'll talk about them in the video. All right, number one, the domain. You have to go 3 minus 4x is greater than or equal to 0. Negative 4x is greater than or equal to negative 3. X is less than or equal to 3/4. So for the domain, you go from negative infinity to 3/4. Then the range, I'll come over here and do this. The range for number one, you go 7 times greater than or equal to 0 plus 2. Well, 7 times 0 is 7. 7 times infinity is still infinity. And then you have to add 2. So 9. Infinity plus 2 is still infinity. So basically the range here is greater than or equal to 9. Actually, sorry, let's back up. Let's back out of that real quick. 7 times 0 is actually 0, not 7. And so when you add 2, you just get 2. So it's actually, the range is from greater than or equal to 2. Sorry about that. So the domain and the range. All right, number 2, if you notice, the domain is going to be automatically all real numbers because it's a parabola. The range, that's where you go 3 minus 2 times and then 0 to infinity. So 3 minus, in this case, it's going to be 0 to infinity because 2 times 0 is 0. Oh yeah, go ahead. So 3 minus 0 is 3. 3 minus infinity is negative infinity. So that means that the range is from negative infinity to 3. For number 3, once again, the domain is all real numbers because it's an absolute value. But for the range, this is where you have to replace it with greater than or equal to 0. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times infinity is infinity. Then you subtract 7. So 0 minus 7 is negative 7. Infinity minus 7 is still infinity. So therefore the range is from negative 7 to infinity, or greater than or equal to negative 7. For number 4, it's a diagonal line. So therefore the domain is all real numbers and the range is all real numbers. Number 5 is a horizontal line. So the domain is all real numbers, but the range is 25. And for a vertical line, the domain will be, in this case, negative 31. The range will be all real numbers. All right, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys tomorrow in class. Have a good evening.